Welcome to the Huddle Up Podcast, your go-to show for all things Broncos.
Once again, Broncos country, it is time to huddle up. I am Carl Dumler, and with me as always we have Nick Kendell. This show's focus is all things that pertain to your Denver Broncos, with an extra focus on the NFL Draft. Nick and I will continue to talk general Broncos news, but always have a focus towards team building. We still stand by our statement, though, that building teams in the offseason and playing armchair GM is just as fun as the actual games on Sunday. Follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And of course, tweet us as much as you like and follow the podcast account at HuddleUpPod. You can also follow ours and our co-writers' content at MileHighHuddle.com, a part of Scout.com and an affiliate of Scout Media and the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football and Bronco crazy as we are, so please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes, as well as iHeart, Stitcher, SoundCloud, CastBox, and Spreaker. Don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners, so please take the time to rate and subscribe to let your voices be heard on how you enjoy the show. Today, we are moving a little bit forward from the safety group to the cornerbacks, and I feel very confident in saying that I think this is the strongest group on the entire team. And maybe this is homerish, I don't think it is, for me to say that I think this is the strongest cornerback group in the entire NFL. Would you agree with that, Nick?
Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Pro Football Focus, get out of here with that Cowboys, the top secondary. I'm still mad about that. Did you see what Aaron Rodgers did to them? Come on, get out of here.
Yeah, and I'm still not exactly liking the whole, who was it on NFL.com that put the Jaguars combo ahead of ours?
Ike Taylor.
Yeah, there it is. And my goodness.
He's still mad. He's still mad that Demaryius Thomas burnt the heck out of him on that Tebow slant route. So
that play will live in infamy. Oh my goodness, that was awesome. But yes, Broncos secondary, especially this cornerback group, they are getting ready to set the NFL record for allowing the fewest yards passing for the third straight season. That is incredible. So this is going to be a fun group to talk about. Lots of, it might sound a little homerish, but man, these guys are good. I don't think it's anything to say that we have easily the best cornerback group in the NFL. But before we dive into the cornerbacks, I want our listeners to know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Again, that's audibletrial.com/huddleup. Now, Nick, have you ever used this before?
Yeah, I've used it a few times, just different books. And, if you're on a car ride, or I ride the bus to work every single day, and if I'm not listening to podcasts, I'll be listening to something like that.
Perfect. Yeah. No, I listen to it all the time. So I recommend it to any of our listeners. Sign up for Audible. All right, well, let's get to the talk of the day, looking at our cornerback group. And maybe this is the first question, maybe the hardest question of the day. Who is better, Chris Harris or Aqib Talib?
Man, that's like ice cream or cake. They're both fantastic. I'll take both mixed together. That's what we get with Denver. But I'll probably go with Talib if we're basing it off just one season. If I just needed one guy for next season, I would go to Talib. Long term, I'd go Harris because younger, not the off-field issues or the injuries. But Talib, I feel like he covers more number one wide receivers. He's going to go up against the Julio Jones, the AJ Greens of the world. And the thing that really makes him stand out to me is his ability to create turnovers and then not only create the turnovers, but then take them to the house. So it can flip field position and it can get you points. And I think that's just so imperative, especially when you've had a struggling offense. If you can get a guy in the secondary that can, be a ball hawk and then take it to the house and get points, you can't put a value on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I've flip-flop on this one a little bit all day just thinking about it, but I'm still going to go with Mr. Underrated Chris Harris. The guy that can play outside and play inside and play both of them at all-pro level. I think that's just unheard of in this league. There's a lot of guys that are great at playing the boundary, but would stink if they were asked to play the slot. I remember seeing, I think it was Richard Sherman try to play the slot, and he was just getting burned by those quick guys in the middle. So just the ability to play against big guys, small guys, whatever it takes to win that battle. I love that. And I just love his story. Just everything just seems to scream underrated with this guy. Even this year, what was he ranked on the NFL.com top 100 players? Like
he
60?
was I think he was below 50, which is absurd.
Yeah. He made the comment about how he's the only first team All-Pro to be below the top 50. So still being underrated by people. But let's just start with him. Let's deep dive into Chris Harris. Maybe discover a few things that maybe we didn't even know about this guy. So what can you tell me about him?
Well, just looking it up quickly, he was player number 63 on the top 100 players of 2017, and he was down 11 spots from 52 in 2016. So a little bit of disrespect, but that's nothing new to or who I like to call Scrap Dog. I was on a forum, Bronco fans, when he was first coming in, and he just was all scrap all the time. Heart, technique, passion, smarts, and he's Scrap Dog. He'll always be Scrap Dog to me.
Yeah.
So I love Harris. He's not the biggest guy, 5'10", 199 pounds, but he's solid, especially 5'10", 200 pounds. That's running back size. Only 27 years old, and he played his college ball, kind of like Talib, which is ironic because it's one of the worst football programs in the country, at the University of Kansas. No offense to Kansas listeners out there, but
yeah, there was a time that they were good in football, when they had the big boy as coach, and they went to the Orange Bowl, I think it was. And,
what was that coach's name? He was a big dude.
Man, yeah. I'm trying to remember. I'm a KU. Well, I'm not a KU fan, but I'm from Kansas, so I should remember his name. Oh man,
I think his name was Manvino.
That might have been it. It's something like that. Anyway, he was a big boy. We think Andy Reid's a big boy. Like this guy ate Andy Reid. Okay, I'm being a little mean, but he was big, but that was one time that KU football was actually good. You had Keep Talib. You had Chris Harris there, some decent players that have turned into great NFL players. So, University of Kansas the one time in my lifetime that they've been good at football.
Yeah, they got basketball though, so I don't feel too bad for them. But yeah, played back to Chris Harris Jr. Went to the University of Kansas, and he actually played safety there, which is one reason that I think he went undrafted. Broncos saw something in him there, and they brought him in, and instead of playing him at safety, they moved him to cornerback because they saw a technician and a guy with good instincts and some athleticism. He had very good pre-draft measurables. He ran a 4.48 40 with a 1.59 10-yard split, a 4.2 20, a 7.01 3-cone, and a decent job in both the vertical and the broad jump. And he's just been phenomenal ever since he came to Denver. He's been a 3-time Pro Bowler from 2014 through 2016. A first-team All-Pro once and a second-team All-Pro twice. So this guy is probably the best Bronco corner, career-wise, behind Champ Bailey. And that's Champ Bailey might be the best cornerback ever. So that's saying something.
Yeah. And I saw something about how his 2014 season, PFF rated it their number 2 season since they've started grading cornerbacks. But, he wasn't a first-team All-Pro, That's just, again, that underrated. He's been good. He was, all rookie team back in 2011. And 2012, he started breaking out, showing his skills. 2013, he was a stud until he went down with injury. Then 2014 was his for sure breakout year. So, yeah, he's been great for a long time. It's just taken people a long time to catch up to that.
Yeah, and he'll continue to be underrated because he's on a team with a lot of good guys, and he's not your typical loudmouth, talks a lot cornerback. He's quiet, and he goes out there, puts in his work, and he shuts up the opponents. So he's awesome, and I think I wouldn't say that he's peaked, but we got the next 3-4 years of him still in his prime. So he's probably going to end up on the Ring of Fame. I don't think that's a stretch to say. He's been that good for us, and I think he's going to continue to be that good for us.
Yeah. Do you think because he's been so underrated, it could really hurt his chance? I'm maybe jumping to conclusions here of Hall of Fame kind of career, but he's playing at that kind of level, I think. Just with how much he has shut down guys. He's been top 5 almost every single year, top 2 probably the last 2-3 years combined. he's kind of been on that career arc, but he doesn't really have the interception numbers. He doesn't do the talking. He doesn't have the draft position. So does that all kind of really play into that he just won't be recognized in that light?
I think people are starting to come around that Chris Harris is one of the best cornerbacks in football across the NFL, not just in Denver. But if he retired today, there's no way he'd get on, I think. I mean, it's just, you need to have that longevity. If he keeps up this pace for the next 5-6 years, I mean, absolutely. I think he could be a Hall of Famer. And he might even transition to safety in the later part of his career because he is that instinctual and that smart at coming down and run support and everything like that. So he's a versatile guy. And with the more spread concepts transferring to the NFL because of college football, the way Chris Harris can play both outside boundary corner and move into nickel, he's just super valuable. There's not many guys that are as good at him at both spots. And I mean, I just can't speak out enough about this guy.
Nope, I agree. I mean, just some stats here. I just want you and I are both stats guys, so trying to show just how good this guy has been. I think one of the best stats he has is his 36 games without giving up a touchdown consecutively. I mean, that's more than 2 seasons, obviously, worth of games right there. And unfortunately, Antonio Brown seems to be like his kryptonite. The one guy that seems to give him trouble. But yeah, to go 36 games without giving up a touchdown. Just to give kind of a big picture, and this is a stat for Aqib Talib, but Aqib Talib's the only guy that played more than, I think, 315 snaps that gave up 0 touchdowns this last year. So to go 2 entire seasons and more without a touchdown just shows, I mean, this guy's been phenomenal. Game in, game out. I mean, he's the most consistent cornerback in the NFL. Every week he's going to do something great, I don't know. It impresses me. And another one that I just love, you're a big Patrick Peterson fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I like athletic freaks. I can't help it. He's big. He's really fast and long, and I think he can match up with pretty much anybody. But I don't think he's as versatile as Harris. That's the thing. He's a boundary corner. Right.
Agree. But just a stat to show, I mean, he was in the same draft as Harris. He was taking that top 10 by Arizona. A lot of people thought the Broncos should have taken him. And, in their entire time in the NFL, Patrick Peterson has given up 29 touchdowns. And most people consider him a top 5 cornerback in the NFL. I agree. I think he is. And I think you think that too. And in that same time span, Harris has only given up 12. I mean, again, just showing how great this guy has been. And, just how little he's like you said, he's finally getting that recognition. He's first team All-Pro this year with Aqib Talib. So finally getting that recognition. But, man, he's been doing it for so many years. And Bronco fans are pretty spoiled right now to have, pretty much the number 1 and number 2 quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, that's unheard of.
Yeah, it's the no-fly zone for a reason. I mean, I don't know if you saw that the Jets kind of threw some shade at us with there.
Yeah, I was just going for a run right before we started this podcast, and they were laughing about that and just laughing at how the Broncos had really, the Broncos Twitter account had gotten after them for it and made fun of them. Something about that they were doing a cover album, just covering the Broncos kind of thing, but. Yeah, I love it. They truly are the no-fly zone. I mean, it's going to be hard to ever find, I think, a quarterback group that's as good as this one in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think you'll find it. And that's not only the 2 guys that we've been talking about, but 3 deep, there's nobody that matches. There are some potential, with Jacksonville with Ramsey and Bouye, but Chris Harris and Talib are just so good. And if the run defense can step up this year and create some more passing opportunities, some 3rd and longs, this defense is going to eat even more.
Agreed. I think I saw something about Tennessee had the perfect game plan against the Broncos last year of just run it down our throats pretty much kind of thing. And I think the Broncos, Bradley Roby only played like 30% of the snaps because they just were running it so well. We didn't get to our nickel and dime packages to really show our depth. But we're kind of getting off base here a little bit. Anyway, back to Chris Harris, because we really need to just focus on him here for a little bit. What do you think do you think his role is going to change at all this year? New coaching staff, new defensive coordinator, new position coach. Do you think anything changes for him?
I have read that they're going to be more aggressive with them. A lot more delayed blitzes, maybe playing a little bit closer to the line and just being more aggressive. So I'm excited for that. He's a smart player, and I don't think he's really going to run himself out of plays or put himself in a bad position being over-aggressive. But aggression on the defense, especially in the secondary, I love it. So I'm hoping a little more chances on some balls, some more pass deflections, and just creating chaos.
Yeah, and I think that is an underrated part of his game is his ability to tackle. That he doesn't allow a lot of yards after catch. If he does give up a catch, he's making the tackle right there. And so getting him in on some blitzes, making some more surprise plays and some big plays, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just talking about him as a player, he's not the perfect cornerback, and that the main thing that he's going to have issues with is size compared to, some bigger guys, some Patrick Peterson types, Talib types. And, you saw that a little bit week 1 last year when he gave up a couple big receptions to Kelvin Benjamin, who's 6'5" and 290 pounds. At least that's what the reports. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully he's down to 220 for his own sake. But he's obviously going to have some issues with some size sometimes. But, it's just you can't really fault him for it because that's just who he is. And as a option 1A, 1B cornerback, it doesn't get any better. He's just phenomenal, and good guy. You just can't speak out enough about Chris Harris. He's a true Bronco. Took a hometown discount to stay in the no-fly zone. The dude's awesome.
Yeah. 5-year, $42.5 million contract with $10 million signing bonus. For those who are wondering what his contract is. And, you're looking at some of those top cornerbacks right now, and at least pay-wise, are making like $15 million a year. And here he is making $9 million. This next year, this next season after this one, when Bradley Roby goes on his 5th-year option, Bradley Roby's almost going to be making as much as Chris Harris. That's just – it's amazing that what kind of contract, what kind of thing he's done for this team. He's just – everything about him just screams this guy should be a fan favorite. His play on the field, hometown discount, all those kind of things. He's just been great.
Yeah, absolutely. He's Mr. Bronco to me. There's probably no player. I love Von Miller. I'm more of a defensive line guy. But if there's somebody that I'm picking, to give the speech or represent the Broncos, it's Chris Harris. He's the dude.
Yep. Agreed. Well, let's move on to his partner in crime, I guess you could say, Aqib Talib. What do you got on him?
Well, like we touched on a little bit earlier, Aqib Talib is one of the best ball hawks / pick six cornerbacks in the NFL, and it's probably so good that it's, along with his coverage ability, is going to have him end up in Canton unless he does something boneheaded off the field. He's got good size. He's 6'1", 205 with excellent length, and he is age 31, so he's probably right at his prime, maybe about to start to step down a little bit athletically. But just talking about, he had a few quotes last year about how he never was really so much a film study guy before, and just since coming to Denver, he's really settled down and started putting in the work that way, and it's made a world of difference. So I'm thinking he's probably going to age just fine, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I agree. And the injuries does concern me. We'll get into that here in just a little bit, but continue on. Yeah,
like we talked about, he is also another cornerback from Kansas, which still blows my mind as a college football fan. How are these great cornerbacks coming from Kansas? I don't know. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro in 2016 and a second team in 2013. And his contract he signed back in 2014 was a 6-year, $57 million deal. Over the next 2 seasons, he has a $12 million cap hit, and he has 3 more years left on his deal. The third year, he has 0 dead cap with a $8 million cap hit. So there's potential, if he gets injured or something happens, that the Broncos could move on from him. So that's something to monitor and mention as we go forward. He's absolutely worth his contract the way he's been playing. He's outplayed his contract, to be completely honest. But if he gets injured or something happens, that cliff can happen pretty quickly. We saw it with Darrelle Revis. And Champ Bailey, unfortunately. If he's, drops off in the next few years, Broncos have very little, there's no dead cap for 2019. So that's great for the team. And if he keeps it up, I wouldn't be upset giving him an extension or a restructure, maybe add an extra year on the end. But great player, and I'm hoping he stays with us for a little while longer.
Agreed. And just looking over, this guy, like I said, he's played at a phenomenal level. Not only with us, but his entire career. I've had some people say that when he was with the Bucs, he was a terrible player, and I'm just like, did you actually watch this guy? He had a little bit of an attitude problem and got suspended for some Adderall issues that a few other players have had some same things. But yeah, this guy, he's had 3 touchdowns for the team in the last year, or in the last 2 years. 25 passes defense, 6 interceptions since he became a Bronco. And yeah, he's a huge playmaker, just what you need on this defense. When our team needs a play, this is the guy that you need on the team. He's perfect at just really baiting a quarterback into a bad decision. He's made even great quarterbacks look stupid sometimes. So I love this kid. I love his play on the field. I love his attitude. A lot of people feed off that. There's been a couple times that I've kind of soured on him about some of his things on the field. I didn't like his Jordan Norwood push last year. I understood because I wanted to do the same through the TV. But, it just, sometimes it does kind of spew over. And then we kind of hear about in the locker room when Russell Kung tried to stand up and talk, and Aqib Talib pretty much told him sit back down. Those kind of things. He does some things that just kind of make you just shake your head. And I am worried, here in about 2 days. We got 2 more days of mini camp. Today was first day of mini camp. They go on a month-long break. And I am praying that this guy never goes back to Dallas. He will. I know he will. That's where his family's at. But he just seems to make stupid decisions when he gets around some of those kind of people. So I worry about this next month. Bronco fans, you better be trying to keep a close eye to make sure that if you're in the Dallas area, keep a close eye to keep Talib out of those clubs. But
alcohol plus money plus fame equals bad decisions.
Yeah, it's first off, I'm surprised he didn't get suspended. We do have news now that he's not going to get suspended. We do know now he did shoot himself. He has admitted that. Stupid. If you have a gun, yes, yeah, he is. He is very lucky that it barely grazed him. He was injured there for a little bit, and then to have the season that he did after shooting himself. Were you in that camp that was wanting him cut after all that?
Oh, absolutely not. No way. He's too talented. I mean, if I was just going to see where the suspension came, but he's just too talented, and he didn't shoot somebody else. And I mean, the rules in Texas with guns are a lot different than New York with the Plaxico Burress incident. So he didn't hit a female or anything. So self-inflicted, but I definitely didn't want him cut. That's just silly. That's as bad as the trade DT camp. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the Von Miller after he got suspended. People are wanting him traded.
Stupid.
Yeah. I don't know. You're not going to have a team of angels in the NFL. Fans just have to get on board with that, I guess, or find another sport to cheer for. Because, NFL, there's going to be some bad characters off the field. But from everything we hear, he is a great locker room guy. Everybody loves him. Think he's one of the best teammates to play with. And people just feed off him. So he's a great player to have. But I do have a few questions for you here. This is mostly a lot of contract talk. Because we talked about this a little bit earlier, with Chris Harris having a really cheap contract, Bradley Roby getting ready to have his 5th-year option here in 2 years. When do you think Talib is let go from the team?
Probably 2 years, 3 years from now. It's going to depend on how all the contracts work out. And, I mean, it's going to depend a lot on Roby as well. I mean, if Roby struggles this year, then I think they may just let him walk after his 5th-year option. So the Broncos have picks coming up. They could maybe take another cornerback early in the draft and have him play that nickel role, that boundary corner, moving Harris to nickel. But Talib's so good that for now, I think I keep him. Luckily, we don't have to answer this question today.
Yeah, that's
my
true.
Crystal ball.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I mean,
he's phenomenal, and we really need that turnover ability. So glad we don't have to make that decision now. But he's somebody to watch, and it's specifically with his injuries. I think last year he had the injuries, and he's had hamstring issues, back issues, and those can become chronic. So, but he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on that could definitely change our payroll structure.
Yeah, my one worry in all of this is Bradley Roby. Let's say he does have a great bounce back year, looks more like his 2nd year than this last year. Does this maybe push him away from the Broncos? Say they decide to keep Talib for the next 2 years and he doesn't get that opportunity to start?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I think Denver, if they were smart, they would look to potentially put one of those guys on the trade block and see what kind of picks they could get back for him, and then just restock in the draft in that regard. Are they going to be as good as Talib or Roby? No, but they're going to be, well, probably not, but they'll be cheaper. They'll be cost controlled for a while. They'll be younger, and that just kind of helps you reset that position with some young talent. It all depends on how Roby does this next year and how Talib does health-wise. If all do great, maybe you look to move Roby before his fifth-year option. Maybe you can get a second-round pick for him. He's worth a first, but with just 1 year left, to get a second-round pick for that'd be super valuable. So we'll see what happens, but I'm just going to enjoy having 3 top 15 cornerbacks on the team for right now.
I agree. I'm a little surprised. I guess top 15 for Bradley Roby, like in the entire NFL?
Top 15, top 25. I really think he's going to have a bounce back year this year. I've heard he's been having a great camp, and he's got all the athletic skill set to do it. He's super quick twitched, aggressive. He's a good tackler, and I think he could probably have a very, very good year. When you have that many good cornerbacks, somebody's got to get picked on a little bit, and they'd rather throw it at Roby right now than Harris or Talib. But I think, he's coming up on his 4th year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he busted out this year.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's talk a little bit about Roby here. Can you give me a little information on him?
Absolutely. Bradley Roby played for the Ohio State Buckeyes. He is 5'11", 192 pounds, and 25 years old. So he's my age. I'm just a little guy over here. Still young and just an athletic freak. He ran a 4.39 40, which is the fastest of our corners. 404 20-yard shuttle, and 38.5 vertical, and a 104 broad jump. So he's very good, twitched-up athlete. And the team just picked up his 5th-year option for $8.526 million. So he's got 2 years left on the Broncos on his current contract. He's, like we were talking about, twitched up. He's got good height, weight, speed. Just a prototypical corner. He could maybe be a little bigger, but when you're 5'11" to 6'1" and about 195 to 205 pounds, that's prototype for me. He's got good hips. Sometimes he can be a little stiff there, but they flip pretty well. He can be pretty aggressive in the jam game, and he's got good recovery. Sometimes he can be a little bit too aggressive and get himself caught flat-footed trying to read a quarterback, but he's also good in that regard, baiting a quarterback and taking to the house. You saw that game against Jacksonville where the offense was doing horrible. That interception by Roby probably turned the game around and made sure the Broncos had a comfortable victory. So, nobody in the league has a third cornerback as good as Roby, and I think he's just going to get better because he's young. Then we got some new coaches in there, more defensive back heavy, and I think he's going to put in more work this year. He's talked about it. Last year he felt like he was a letdown for himself, and he's going to reassess it and work harder, and I think this year I'm going to have a great year. Yeah.
No, I agree, and he has that top 5 cornerback potential. We saw, year 2 with him, man, he was an electric player for us, made some big plays. And, because like you said, he does get picked on. When you have Talib, you have Harris, who are you going to go after? You're going to go after that third cornerback. But even this last year, he had times of really showing it. I found this stat that I thought was pretty awesome. He had a 4-game stretch this last year where he allowed a quarterback rating of 0. He allowed 1 catch over a 4-game stretch and had an interception, only gave up 12 yards. So, like I said, there is that potential. Even with him getting picked on, he still was able to go out there and make plays and show he can really stay with this unit. I think that's some of it is we maybe judge him a little hard sometimes because he's being compared to Harris and Talib. And that's a lot to live up to. But you look at just the AFC West. Yards per coverage snap. This is a big stat for cornerbacks. Broncos had the top 3 cornerbacks in the AFC West. You had Chris Harris giving up 0.66 yards per coverage snap, Talib at 0.74, and Roby at 1.1. And like I said, those were the top 3 cornerbacks in the AFC West. And you think you have some actually pretty good cornerbacks in the AFC West. You got Casey Hayward. You got oh my goodness, I'm going blank here on the Chiefs.
Marcus Peters,
there we go, who has been a huge turnover specialist there for them. So you got a few guys. You got Sean Smith with the Raiders, even though I still say that isn't a great fit, and I'll keep saying that is. But yeah, these guys, they've been just phenomenal, all 3 of them at different times. And Roby, if he can get more consistent, that unit could be taken to a whole new level. We thought the last 2 years was great. Just think about this unit with Roby playing as a top 10 cornerback. Oh my goodness. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself on some of that, but he does have that potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And with hopefully, once again, defense is synergistic. A lot of things feed off each other. So if the run defense steps up and, creates better passing downs, 2nd and 7, 3rd and 8, that's going to help the secondary. That's going to help the pass rushers, and it should help everybody perform their job better because it takes away some of that element of surprise. When the offense is forced into a passing situation, you don't have that guesswork. You don't have to bite on that play action, and it just makes everything easier. So if the run defense can step up this year, and our young guys in the secondary, specifically I think Simmons and Roby are guys that are trending up, this could be an even better secondary this year, which is horrifying to think about for other teams.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say, who could ever keep up with all the weapons with the Patriots? And I'm thinking, if there's a team out there that can do it, it's the Broncos. They have the weapons to fight off all those guys. But we'll just have to see. We'll get maybe hopefully 2 opportunities at that for this next season. But do you see anything this year for Roby that's going to maybe be different than what we've seen in the past?
He just needs to be more consistent. Sometimes he gets his feet a little crossed up, and he can bite on some balls or some double moves. And I think that with film study and just a more committed approach, especially with the payday coming up, I think that's a big motivator. I think he's going to have a better year. And, like I said, we brought in a bunch of defensive back-minded coaches. Our head coach is the defensive back coach. Our defensive coordinator is a defensive back coach. Obviously, our defensive back coach is a defensive back coach. So there's a bunch of guys that are going to be on him, and a bunch of people. Sitting behind Harris and Talib, and then with all those coaches there as well, it's probably as good of a position to be in the entire NFL.
Agreed. No, I agree. I think with Roby, the sky is the limit with the guy. It's up to him of how great he wants to be. When we drafted him, I remember doing some film study on him, and I kept saying that at Ohio State, he relied completely on his athleticism to win. There were a lot of times he did not show great technique. He would just find himself out of position. He'd find himself turned around every once in a while. And in college, he got away with it because he's just more athletic than everybody else. But to really make it in the NFL, and to have guys like Talib and Chris Harris who are technicians around him, and like you said, then to have the coaching staff there like it is right now. This is a great spot for him. This is a great opportunity to really show the NFL and the Broncos, that he deserves a long-term deal. I could even see that where after this year they decide to go ahead and just give him that long-term deal, not wait for that 5th-year option, and just see if they can maybe get a little bit of a discount that way and just make sure that they have him locked up and Harris locked up and maybe they can afford to leave because they have a cheap quarterback. We'll just have to see. But yeah, there's a lot of possibilities with this top 3 unit, and I'm excited to see what they do this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great unit, and we should appreciate it because this is, I would say, historic. What they've done the last 2 years and what they look like they're going to do this year, I don't think there's been a secondary that has been this consistently good over this stretch. So appreciate it, and looking back, you can tell your kids that you saw the no-fly zone.
Yep. Nope, I agree. I remember saying the same thing to Bronco fans when we got Peyton Manning and DeMarcus Ware. Appreciate what you got because it goes away quick. You always think it's going to last forever. I remember when we won 2 Super Bowls in a row, and I kept thinking, man, this Super Bowl thing is easy. And was I wrong on that? But let's move on to maybe some of the more unknown guys that fill out the rest of the roster and kind of see where they're going to be. And we'll start here with our new rookie, Brendan Langley. We've talked about him a little bit on this podcast before, but let's dive into him again, just kind of remind some listeners about this guy. So what do you got on him?
Well, he is a big cornerback, 6 foot, 199 pounds, but he looks longer than that. He's got a very good length in his arms. 4.43 40, 22 bench reps, which I believe was the high at the combine. Good job with the vertical jumps and okay agility drills. He's a little raw as a player. He can get his feet crossed up, and he looks more at home when he's closer to the line of scrimmage and asked to play physically at the line and not asked to flip his hips too much. He's a little stiff right now, and he can get his feet crossed up. So that's something that he's going to need to work on. But he does have aggression in the run game, and he's aggressive at attacking the ball. He had a fair amount of picks during his time at Lamar, and you could see that he was just a much better athlete than everybody else he was going against. One thing that I love about him is that he does have that aggressive dog mentality. I'm not sure if he's much of a talker. I didn't really see that so much when I was watching him on tape, but he's somebody who's definitely aggressive and not afraid to put his hands on wide receivers, running backs, even take on a tackle if he has to help set the edge on the outside the hash marks. So a very good player and just another great height, weight, speed, strength guy that I think will probably come in this year more as a special teamer, a gunner, or an outside kickoff return guy or a kickoff coverage guy, and provide athleticism that we need on special teams year one.
Yeah, looks good. This is kind of just going a little bit off topic just by something that you just said. I was listening today to some of the mini camp stuff, and I was just laughing at how many of the guys were talking back and forth between the offense and defense. And it just cracked me up to think of, Keith Talib and Von Miller were the two that were mostly doing it back and forth with the offense. And then I guess Paxton Lynch got into it with them, kind of bad-mouthing him a little bit here and there. And I think Langley is kind of one of those kind of guys too, of just really being a talker and wanting to have that aggressive attitude. I think he really, if he has anybody that he's going to maybe try to base his game around, I think it would be Aqib Talib. I think he just wants to be that kind of guy. And so I could see him kind of being that, of wanting to get a little bit of talking going and everything else. And I'm interested to see how that goes the rest of the minicamp. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off on a rabbit hole here, but yeah, just some of these guys, it's going to be fun to see how these two units go up against each other and see all the talking that goes on. But yeah, just getting back here to Langley, we don't have a whole lot on him because he moved to Lamar and Lamar doesn't get a whole lot of, TV time. But yeah, he was turnover machine, played wide receiver. I kind of like those guys that kind of switch from wide receiver to cornerback just to have that understanding of the position. You know what you're looking at. You know what they're trying to do with their steps and all those kind of things. I played wide receiver for quite a few years and, I just always kind of thought I could probably do well at cornerback just because I understand a little bit of what's going on. So he is raw, but I think he can learn very quickly.
Agreed. And one thing I like about those guys that played wide receiver that moved to defensive back is that oftentimes they have better hands and more ball skills going up to the ball. And you saw that when he was at Lamar. He racked up 6 interceptions and 7 pass breakups. So this kid has ball skills. And I'm excited. I think he could be the de facto Talib replacement down the line. But year one, probably the Kayvon Webster replacement.
Yeah. Now, do you see him more as that gunner role? I guess like I guess you're saying Kayvon Webster, but do you see him getting any return time at all?
He could work his way into a return role, but with Isaiah McKenzie and Carlos Henderson, probably not super likely unless somebody's having some fumble issues or injured.
Okay. How much do you see him actually see in the field then, like for defense, not just special teams?
He's just so raw. I'm not sure he will see the field that much this year. He might if there are some injuries, but he's going to have to battle with that with Lorenzo Doss. So we'll see what happens. But I think year one, probably given how raw he is and just the different speed of the game and the passing game, especially from Lamar College to the NFL, is going to be a huge step for him. And he has the tools, the athleticism, the size, all that. But it's just going to take a little bit of time, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like him in that gunner role. He has that speed. He has that strength, just to really hold up and that's something we're missing. We lost quite the player in Kayvon Webster for our special teams, and there's a chance that we lose our other big-time gunner in Latimer, just in a numbers game. That he's right on the bubble too. So just having that other guy that can really get after, on special teams, because that's a very underrated part of the game. So I wouldn't mind that just being his first year and just letting him to, learn from all these other guys and just see what he can be. And like you said, we have another guy here, Lorenzo Doss. And I kind of view him, I don't know, there's almost like a fourth cornerback and a fourth cornerback, or like a fourth cornerback to be the special teams guy and a fourth cornerback to come in on the dime package. That's kind of how I view it with these two. Because I don't see Lorenzo Doss being that special teams guy. But let's talk a little bit about him. What do you have on him?
Well, Doss is a pick from a few years ago. He's 5'11 and 187 pounds. He might be a little bit bigger than that now. And he went to Tulane University and is 23 years old. He ran a 4.5 40 with only 9 reps on the bench, but that's not the biggest deal. 33.5 vertical, 115 broad, 7.23 cone, and 11.9 60-yard shuttle. So pretty good athlete. Not the most smooth guy. I was talking a little bit. Langley's not the most flexible, smooth with that hip flex. Doss is a little worse than that. He's pretty stiff when I watched him on tape, at least when he was at Tulane. But he's got size and he's got length and he's got ball skills. He's very good at coming down and being aggressive and putting his hands on the ball. Sometimes that can lead him to giving up some big receptions. The game that really sticks out to me is when Tulane played Rutgers back in 2014, I believe it was, and it was Loante Carew, who was drafted by the Dolphins in the second round 2 years ago, and he just tore Doss up. Carew's a very savvy guy, kind of almost a little bit of a Carlos Henderson type, and Doss was a little bit too aggressive, and he guessed wrong too many times. And a guy with good footwork, good route running, can take Doss's lunch money because he can be too aggressive. And I think that, we heard all that hype from Doss last year. He always making great plays on the ball, blah, 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 interceptions. But when I saw him in preseason, he was getting burnt a little bit too consistently, and that just had a little bit to do with his stiffness, and he was just a little bit too much of a gambler. And I'm not sure how – I just don't think he's the athlete that the other cornerbacks we've talked about so far are. So he's going to have to step it up this year if he's going to, potentially be a guy who can have a starting role down the line. If not, he provides depth at cornerback, which you need in this day and age, and can be a good piece for us.
Agreed. I'm going to say a name here that might drive Bronco fans crazy. Maybe I shouldn't say it. Alphonso Smith, the guy that we traded a first-round pick for that turned into I won't even say that name. Okay. Anyway, I remember him coming out of college. He was kind of known as that ball hawk, and that's what McDaniels kept talking about. But he just didn't have that athleticism that really transferred over to the NFL. And I worry a little bit with Doss, is that he trusts himself a little too much. Kind of like you said, he's a big-time gambler, and I think it was Aqib Talib talked about that he's either a big play for you or against you. And way too often it does seem like it is against us. So he's got a big year ahead of him. I mean, this is kind of his prove-it year. If he steps up, then he's good for another couple years with the team. If not, he might be gone by next year because he doesn't offer a whole lot on special teams. He's not that big guy that can really get down the field and make a big play. They only used him on special teams, I think, on 36 snaps this last year. And so that's just kind of tell you, I mean, they used him more on defense than they used him on special teams. So that should just show how much they trust him on special teams. But, that fourth cornerback, they got about 10 to 11% of the snaps this last year. And Doss was part of that when Webster got hurt. And so, I could see that for him this year, getting about 11% of the snaps and having the opportunity to make some plays. But he better be prepared. I mean, I think we got a couple other guys like Teron Nixon, who we're going to talk about here in just a sec, and Langley, who are just kind of biting at the heels, ready to take some of those snaps if he really starts getting too aggressive.
Yeah, agreed. And he's just going to have to show it more consistently in his pass coverage sets. Denver likes to play a lot of man, so he's going to have to be able to stay in front of those guys and not get crossed up. So I think he can do it. I mean, he has length, which is something that can make up for not being as athletic as some of these other corners. But last year I was a little bit too high on him because, all the buzz coming out of camp, like, oh, he's doing great, interceptions left and right. Then we saw him, I think it was against the Cardinals, and some no-name wide receiver, might not even be in the league anymore, just consistently picked on him and got open. So we'll see with Doss. He's coming into it, I believe, is his third year this year, so it should be trending upwards. And like I said, worst-case scenario, he provides depth at cornerback and can be a decent guy that can come in if need be.
Do you see him being a future starter?
I personally don't, but I think probably being a Bronco fan and watching the no-fly zone has skewed my perception of what a good cornerback is. So I'm expecting elite man coverage skills. I'm not even against taking a cornerback first round next year. That's how much I want to have 3 great cornerbacks. But I just don't see him being a upper tier starting cornerback.
No, I agree. I think he's a little bit limited athletically, like you talked about, and I just don't know if his skill set fits well. I think he'd maybe do better like in a zone defense, but with everything in front of him, so he can kind of be watching the quarterback and then go make a play. And while we play some zone, we obviously know Broncos are more of a man coverage kind of team. So I just don't know. I don't know how he fits with this team moving forward. But we'll see. Maybe he can really become that turnover machine and as that fourth cornerback, all of a sudden, get that 2-3 interceptions this year and make a huge difference. We'll just have to wait and see.
I'm not sure. How many cornerbacks do you think they'll carry?
I'm going to say 5. I think it all depends on the safety position a little bit. If we only carry 4 safeties, then we can carry 6 cornerbacks. If we decide to carry 5 safeties, then it's hard to carry 6 cornerbacks as well. And then a little bit, I mean, there's a bunch of numbers games going on. I was listening a little bit earlier of some people talking about D'Angelo Henderson, about how he's going to be on practice squad. But, he's been tearing up all of these OTAs and minicamp and everything else. And he might make it impossible to keep him on the practice squad kind of thing. So it's going to be tough. There's going to be some tough cuts this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a good thing, though. I'm excited to see the training camp battles, and I'm definitely keeping an eye on cornerback. I'm already starting to kind of compile some names at those premium positions, tackle, edge rusher, and cornerback for the next year's draft, and depending on how things go, I'm going to be lobbying for probably one of those positions first round next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be one of those positions, and Elway has stuck to his guns that he uses that first-round pick on critical positions, the ones that are going to cost a lot and that are important too. The pass rusher, the blindside blocker, quarterback, cornerback, those kind of positions. So yeah, I agree. Those are ones for Bronco fans. If you're looking for who the Broncos are going to take in the first round, very good chance it's going to come from one of those 4 or 5 positions.
Yeah, agreed. And those guys, I mean, there's a reason that they are paid the most is because they're the most valuable. So after quarterback, you got that tackle, that edge rusher, and that cornerback. And I think, you see a way to address it every year. The only time he hasn't is Sly Williams. So, that was probably his worst first round pick. So I think he might have learned his lesson, and we'll probably be looking again here soon. I'm excited for some of the cornerbacks next year too. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm not sure if he'll play safety or cornerback from Alabama, who's phenomenal. You got McFadden from Florida State. You got Jair Alexander from Louisville, and you got Inman Marshall from USC. So there's some good young cornerbacks next year, and that might be the way that the Broncos are looking. I would not be the least bit surprised, especially with what we do with Roby and Talib. That's going to have a major impact. But having another good young cornerback that we can have cheap, like the Broncos had Roby over the last 3 years and decently cheap the next 2, that's imperative to keeping the roster structure the way it is and having the no-fly zone intact.
Agreed. And I don't know, just sitting here while we're talking about all this, I'm actually now leaning towards keeping 6 corners.
Okay.
I just think it'd be hard to not have those guys when they could add so much to your team.
Yep, absolutely. And especially you got to have those special team athletes. And I'd rather keep more defensive guys than offensive guys just because most of the times they're better special teamers because they like hitting. Agreed.
Now, is there anybody like out of our undrafted group, probably not to the level of Chris Harris, but that you think could really stand out this offseason?
Well, we talked about some of those cornerbacks that are safeties that could potentially fill a role. And we got another cornerback, Marcus Rios from UCLA. Not the fastest guy, ran a 4.55 pro day, but he had decent numbers, especially in 2015, 49 tackles, 7 passes defended. He's going to have to show it on special teams, though. Probably going to compete with Nixon and Doss. And he probably won't make the team. Just odds are he's a camp body. But, you never know. As far as other undrafted guys, Tyreek Jarrett, I'm pretty sure he'll probably make the team. If not the 53, they'll be on the practice squad.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, obviously that's a good thing to have. That's a good problem when you're having to cut guys that you would love to have on your 53-man roster. There's teams out there that are having trouble actually finding 53 decent players. Jets, who think they're the no-fly zone kind of teams. But, yeah, I love this, especially this secondary unit. I mean, there's going to be some really tough cuts. There's going to be some guys that probably get picked up elsewhere, is my guess. just because I think there's going to be at least one of these guys that maybe just doesn't make it. And other teams will like what they see from our team. But, yeah, it's a fun unit. I love the cornerback group. There's not enough good things to say about them. And I just really appreciate what we have. Like you said, we got to appreciate while we have it because it can go away quickly. Talib can go down with back injuries in a hurry. And, Chris Harris, I don't see him falling off unless he has some major injury. But, Roby could really struggle again this year. But, yes, Bronco fans, just make sure you appreciate everything that we have with this cornerback unit. This might be the last year that we see the true no-fly zone together. I hope it's not. I hope it's many more years and that the Broncos can really just have a history of being the best secondary or one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Elway seems to really put a high premium on it, with the money that he's put into it, the draft capital he's put into it. So I think we're going to see him continue to put money into this and everything else. And like you said, there's a list right there, Bronco fans. You got a list of guys to go start watching. You can start your 2018 draft stuff already. We've already started. I hope you can start too and join us in the conversation because there's a lot of great players for this upcoming draft. Yeah,
agreed. So we'll start breaking into that once college football starts coming around. But, I threw out some names here today that we can start watching for next year. And next week, we're going to be moving on to off-ball linebackers, probably one of the weaker units on the team. So looking forward to diving in because there's definitely going to be some competition there, a little more so than we've had at the safety and cornerback. So a little more open, a little more deep dive in that regard. All right, well, that will wrap up episode 18 of our Huddle Up podcast. Stay tuned for future deep dives into positional groups as we are less than 100 days until the NFL season. Bronco fans, make sure you keep checking back to Mile High Huddle for all your updates on training camp and OTAs and all of the Bronco news. Bronco fans, make sure you keep checking back on Mile High Huddle for all your updates on OTAs and all of the Bronco news. Especially take a look at my article on the offensive line I did recently, talking about the upgrades Elway did across the offensive line and just how important it is for the quarterback's development. I mean, look at the great young quarterbacks in the NFL right now. You got Dak Prescott, you got Marcus Mariota, you got Derek Carr. What do those guys all have in common? They have awesome offensive lines. So if Paxton Lynch or Trevor Siemian or Swag Kelly is going to be the guy, Elway's got to continue to beef up that offensive line and protect those guys. Carl has a couple of player video breakdowns coming up later this week as well, so make sure you're checking in on that. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH, as well as find our Bronco articles at Mile High Huddle, an affiliate of Scout.com. You can follow the Huddle Up podcast by subscribing on iTunes and for Android users, Stitcher, as well as Cashbox, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and other podcast outlets. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us. For Carl Dumler, I'm Nick Kendell, wrapping up the 18th episode of the Huddle Up podcast, the Huddle Up Draft podcast, that is. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week. Go Broncos.
Mile High Huddle.